Cinema is an art form. I'd imagine everyone would know that by now, but still, film left a massive impact on my conscience and way of living as I watched plenty of content and have even had some practice myself. For many, including myself, film is one of the definitive visual art forms, as its ability to express human emotions and connections, as well as being able to create a compelling narrative to affect viewers for years to come. I have been watching movies for many years, but it's not until this past decade where I've been going extra wild. I've been loving movies that were released from even before I was born, but for this video, I'll be focusing on this specific decade from the years 2010 to 2019, as their recent releases gave me plenty of time to think about them and to be inspired by them for the future. I have a few things I want to clarify before I continue with the rest. First, this isn't a ranking on my favorite movies of the decade, but rather a listing of all the movies I've absolutely loved, where I'll just share my quick thoughts before moving on to the rest. Because of that, expect this to run for a while. Next, don't expect every movie you might have loved to make it here, as either I may have not watched it, or I have enjoyed it, but it didn't affect me as much as it did to others. After all, I don't have the same amount of free time as other hardcore film fans. Lastly, others won't share the same thoughts as myself in some sections, so I'd like to let everyone know that it's okay for people to have different opinions. After all, we're all people. I will describe my short viewpoints in no particular order, so the release schedule will be randomized to my desire. Hopefully you guys will healthily debate on the comments on what your favorite films of the decade are. Now, on to the listing. While I highly enjoyed Roma, this is actually my favorite movie made by Alfonso Cuarón, as it made me feel more nervous than most horror movies these days. Heck, it made me feel more anxiety than most movies this decade, period. It's a genuinely unique thrill ride that I probably will not forget, and makes me hope that Alfonso Cuarón can make more genre movies in the future. Hopefully. Please? This might not mean much, but I saw this movie on my dad's birthday, and I loved the hell out of it. As no joke, I think Django Freeman is one of the coolest movie protagonists of that decade. No joke. As not just him, but everyone else in the cast add to this movie's unique style and wit. And while I doubt we're ever going to see another movie just like this, I'd enjoy this ride while it lasted. On the surface, this may seem like another nonsensical alien invasion movie, but trust me, it does much more than just go. Edge of Tomorrow not only surprised myself, but many others. Added not only Yat's unique twist to the alien invasion storyline, but the Groundhog Day storyline as well. The charismatic performances from both Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt help elevate this mixture of cliches into a fantastic sci-fi spectacle, even if the ending was a bit underwhelming compared to the rest of the movie. Now when are we gonna get that sequel, Doug? I feel like such an idiot for thinking that this was gonna be lame, because when I watched it a few years back, this turned out to be some sort of unique masterpiece. As Taika Waititi's bold writing and direction gives this movie a strong identity to have it set apart from all the other low-budget dramedies released during this era. If you have the free time, please check this out, because I was stunned. You know, with all the hype that it's been receiving, it kind of surpassed my expectations, because holy hell, this is the rare exception of the sequel to a reboot that actually lives up to the director's talents, as its unprecedented visual effects and complex relationship elevate this movie to a level that not many have matched, but I hope to see one just like it soon, because wow, nice. Boy, am I glad that Jordan Peele won that well-deserved Oscar, because now he gets to make more great movies such as this. And I can admit, I'm not a horror movie guy, but this is actually the first horror movie that I saw from beginning to end and loved. Crazy, right? The uniqueness that Peele adds to the script makes this thing a beast of its own, as this topics on racial anxiety and crazy identities makes this one heck of a trip to sit through. And I really hope that there's many just like this, but hopefully not copying it, because come on, have some dignity. I'm pretty biased on this one, since it was the first great movie I saw in the last decade, as I was a kid when I loved it, and I still do now. It's no longer the final film of the franchise, but it's still the franchise ending that Hollywood wished they could pull off with their other franchises. But this has become a rarity that will be hard to capture in future years. I hope to see more animated films like this for infinity and beyond. Not bad for a movie I thought I wouldn't like, as I viewed this solely because one of my friends recommended it to me, and it still holds up. It's hard for grounded sci-fi films such as this to get this much mainstream attention, and I'm glad it does, as its use of scientific accuracy, memorable acting, and a great script means that audiences will still go back to it when looking for something smart. No joke, but this is the first MCU movie I've seen from beginning to end, which makes me glad for this to be the one. With no expectations, it surpassed them 10 times over, as it proved that grounded spy thriller vibe works well in this franchise with its bar-raising action and what I believe to be the best written story in this franchise to this day. I'm glad that other movies didn't attempt to copy its style, as it now feels as special today as when it was first released. Talking about a Scorsese flick after a Marvel one? Ironic, right? To be honest, the long runtime didn't affect me, as I never had this much fun watching a movie about such twisted and corrupted subject matters, as it makes terrible actions and people feel like a blast. Which means the movie worked quite well. It's a miracle that Martin still manages to make a consistent film since the 1970s, as it would be quite the shame if he left us any time now. This movie made me feel something. Wow. Just like with The Martian, I never expected to give this one a thought, but it made me relate and sympathize with the people I knew existed, but didn't think twice about, as every single person here is performing at their best, from the cast, crew, and the creatives. The uneven pacing at the end even helps it to its favor, as it only grounds the emotions more than it already has. I'm glad this one won Best Picture. I may have not watched this all in one sitting, but it never broke the immersion, as this type of one location experience is rarely captured this exceptionally today. The strong visuals and addicting musical scores separates this from plenty of other modern westerns, as its energy and execution will never be replicated this successfully, as Tarantino continues to do what he does best, and I wouldn't have it any other way. It's a shame that this movie was ignored upon release, and that it's still ignored now, as this is one I would give the label of underrated. It is also one of the few religious films that I would consider to be amazing, as its nerve-inducing direction, powerful themes, and strong performances deserve at least some attention, as even with the long length. At least gets one a shot, even if the ideas may not be for you. I was freaking relieved that this got the praise it got, as you cannot believe the amount of joy I felt when the people involved got the accolades they deserved. I understand why it may seem too bizarre for a lot of people, but this is an exception of a weird artsy film that actually worked for me 100%. The beauty, visuals, imagination, and characters portrayed here are something of a miracle, as they aren't fresh, but boy does it feel great to see. Go watch it. So much for the people who believe this wouldn't live up to the hype. For this one, I actually fully agree with everyone on the internet who loved this, as this raised the standard for modern action cinema that many won't even attempt to reach due to the commitment added to every corner of its production. I talked about Fury Road so much that it's actually kind of messed up, but it's one of the most rewatchable movies of this decade for me, as it's just so captivating on every level. Congrats to everybody. I knew this was going to be good before it was even released, but I didn't expect it to be Oscar-winning good. This is actually one of the best paced and most uniquely executed films on this list, as the way BlacKkKlansman relates past racism to that of the modern day really does leave an everlasting impact. That's not to take away from the convincing performances and screenplay. They're great too. Kudos to you, Spike Lee. Let's keep this streak going. everybody was surprised by how amazing this ended up being, but I was excited for it before it was even released, as at that time, I was already a massive fan of LEGO-related entertainment. The LEGO Movie blew my young mind, as its clever hilarity, endless creativity, memorable characters, and emotional story beats made it a massive triumph and achievement during that part of my life, and I still come back to it whenever I can. Everything is, indeed, awesome. Snowpiercer is yet another example of a movie I wish I could have watched sooner, as it's truly a standout of sci-fi storytelling. I was aware of it when it was released, but I ignored it, not knowing that it's a strong balance of kinetic action scenes and introspective commentary on society and how we treat it. It may not be a mainstream hit, but I say it deserves it, as I feel that it just about anybody can make a connection with it. This also shows that when an experienced director tackles certain genres, then what can come out of it can become true cinema. Yeah, baby! I highly appreciate that Jordan Peele was able to pull off what many couldn't make me do. Appreciate horror. It seems that everyone was loving it, but it started to wane down in the second half of its year, and I still don't know why. Anyway, the creative team shows that you can still find new ways to present stories and tropes that have been showcased before, as everyone performs at their best, especially Lupita Nyong'o as the lead. Perhaps more horror movies will have me like, you know, Guardians 1 is sort of a groundbreaking action film, as it showed that literally any concept can work wonders if the proper attention and care is used, just like what Marvel did here. They really took a gamble here, as they turned a relatively unknown Marvel team into lovable underdogs that people can never get enough of, including myself. It has a great sense of humor, fun and thrills all around, and a fantastic selection of songs that never feel too distracting, considering its tone and settings. It's just as good of a time now as when it was first released. There was an immense amount of anticipation from everybody, as it would be the first time I would actually watch one of these movies in the theaters. Did it live up to them? Absolutely. It's really easy to complain about these types of movies, but for me, the nitpicks were minor. So minor that the great stuff overshadowed them to the point that they're practically non-existent. Just like with the last movie, it's massively entertaining with gorgeous action, likable leads, strong editing, and a strong feeling of fulfillment. Thank goodness. Another movie that I wasn't interested in being much better than I thought it would be. I really should have just learned my lesson. A drama that shows the power of family and being there for each other that doesn't feel heavy-handed. This masterpiece is a solid adaptation of the classic novel that catapulted promising new actors, is visually stunning, has great music, and includes one of Regina King's greatest performances ever. There's just so much to appreciate here. You know, with the track record that Barry Jenkins has carved, I believe I will watch everything he makes. Except for that new Lion King movie. Sorry, dude. Just so we don't start to second guess them, A24 continues to prove why they're a champion for artists to share their personal voices and visions in film. The Farewell is another powerful drama about relationships and immigrated families and how different cultures can conflict in dire situations, and I felt all the emotions here. Awkwafina / Nora Lune proves that she can act here, and it should have proved that people shouldn't take her for granted, as I believed in her since the beginning. Carry on, A24. A hilarious comedy about Nazis? No.
What a story, Mark.
Yeah, you can say that again.
At first I liked it but didn't think it was amazing, but passing time allowed me to appreciate it for the work of art that it is. As Taika once again proves that he can grab you by the funny bone and the heart if he's given free rein. This satirical movie shows that getting to know one another and showing love can go a long way, as this bold and one-of-a-kind experience performed the perfect balancing act of being silly and outrageous while being grim and personal. Even if it's not for you, show it to someone else, as they might even learn a lesson or two. Before this even came out, the hype for me and my friends was all like, as a showcase that Marvel can balance over a dozen characters while being emotional, well-paced, and action-packed only displays their abilities in putting the work in this movie and previous movies. Its conflicts are believable and impactful, while its messages are profound and grounded, which hopefully furthers this effect, even with the dozen of other films on the horizon. I am utterly shocked at how this movie has been forgotten with time, as I legitimately believe that it's Kathryn Bigelow's best out of her last 3 films, as it may not have a singular lead, but it left me with a sense of fear and tension from start to end. The pacing is also sometimes even, but the intersecting stories and the acting demands it to be remembered by people who like crime movies or those about true events, as time flew by in an instant, as everyone involved deserves to be praised for their efforts. I wonder why she hasn't directed a film since. A movie that I forgot I watched, but loved nonetheless, Kubo and the Two Strings is a visual achievement, as well as a storytelling one, as its unique take on Japanese culture and ideas gives it an identity that stands on its own among its types. The voice cast and their acting are better than I expected them to be, as they add an extra level of charm and immersion that the movie already has. Also, its surprisingly profound message at the end only highlights the uniqueness that it offers to people who were expecting repetition. It may not be mainstream, but it earns its status as a cult film to those who gave it a watch. This film might not be for everyone, as during its unexpectedly short runtime, it has very little combat sequences and a lack of quote-unquote powerful character arcs, but everything else has been praised for a reason. It is straight up gorgeous to look at, has an intense musical score, strong direction that makes you feel the effort that was put into it, meticulous editing that leaves you on nerves, consistent visual storytelling, and a feeling of craftsmanship that is hard to top. This is how you do a concept that's been done a million times and do a completely original execution. I won't give it away, but it's as good as people say it is, as the director's tendency to subvert expectations works wonders here, as that style of storytelling works really well with the murder mystery genre. The main leads alongside the massive ensemble cast all stand on their own with distinct personalities and motivations that adds to the narrative and its many twists and turns. Lastly, I thought this movie was enjoyable enough, but when they explained how the murder was committed, it made me love and rethink the movie in ways that many others haven't been able to make me do in years. I shall be looking forward to the sequels. Even though not everyone thinks the same, I actually believe that this is one of the best installments of the series, as I personally prefer it over First Class. It covers an ambitious and unique time travel story that combines both X-Men casts in a way that feels natural and balanced, as the high stakes left me on the edge of my seat until the end. Everyone does the best they can to prevent it from being convoluted, and they succeed, as every character feels important, as no one feels shoehorned in or like they're wasting space. If you want a satisfying time while also inserting some massive stakes, this is one to try out. Another Christopher Nolan movie that I actually loved a lot, this trilogy ender has a couple of gripes that don't work for me, but the best elements dwarf the problems, as it brings the themes and arcs full circle and reminds many why this series is such a landmark achievement for comic book films, as its distinctive groundedness adds a layer of reality to make the stories feel more believable. I also really enjoyed the climax, as everyone does their job well and provides some of the greatest conflicts and moments I've seen in this kind of movie in the last 10 years. And it came out in the early side of the decade. Impressive. I just saw this movie last August, and not only did I love it, not only had it become one of my favorite films of that decade, but it also made me feel born again, in a way. Bong Joon-ho's Korean masterwork made me appreciate films in other languages towards a level higher than it already was before. In fact, it's the only non-English film on this list, as its unique take on class warfare had my eyes glued to the screen, even during the moments where not much else was going on. There's just so much to praise here, from the way it is shot, to its clever writing, ingenious direction, strong performances from everybody in the cast, and surprising reveals that you would have never imagined in the beginning. With the amount of class that it has, I'm also glad that this won Best Picture. For all the creative minds and studios that want to know how to finish a long-running arc to a memorable film character, this is the way to do it. Even if you haven't witnessed all of his appearances, this still gives off a satisfying level of finality that you don't get much of elsewhere. It also looks great for its type of movie, as almost everyone in the cast is used perfectly, especially Laura/X-23. Hugh and Patrick probably do the best work they've done in this franchise. It makes me pity whoever will play him next in the MCU after this. Also, the ending has brought me closer to crying than most comic book movies have done. That's when one knows you've achieved something truly special. It makes sense that a massive film fan such as myself can be such a Quentin Tarantino simp, as this movie is as much an enjoyable time as his previous works. It's a surprisingly more laid-back and comedic film, even with its topics and time period appealing more to older viewers, as I was incredibly invested in the main characters' individual stories and the interesting things that occurred in each one. Aside from some certain scenes, I can put this on whenever I want to relax or to share the enjoyment with others thanks to its memorable performances and snappy writing. It's a shame that Quentin only has one more movie under his belt before retiring. What an insurmountable achievement! Everyone was excited but also worried if they could balance this many characters alongside having a good villain and story. And it delivers and then some. With what I believe to be the best edited movie in the franchise, almost everyone gained at least one memorable moment, with some of the most ambitious storylines and action set pieces in the entire MCU, while creating a top-tier antagonist that will be remembered for years to come. All of that while also containing one of the most impactful cliffhangers in modern pop culture. This has become my favorite installment in the series so far, and makes me eternally grateful for following the entire franchise up to this point. A movie that is impactful for both me and my heritage, Coco achieves what animated films should strive for, which is being a great movie while also educating people to a culture that they weren't very versed on. It is beyond outstanding for how respectful it is to Mexican culture thanks to its intense research, gorgeous animation, beautiful fantasy-based narrative about descendants and family, creative world building, fully developed characters, and memorable songs, as this is as close to perfect as you can get. Now, if only other studios were unafraid of covering this culture without fearing of ripping others off. Waiting 2 years after the last movie felt pretty intense, and it delivered, as it did what all great sequels should do. It deepens the characters, extends the conflicts, pushes the narrative to new directions, and has enough surprises to keep you guessing, all during a surprisingly long runtime. Most of the characters play a solid or major point in the story, and the ones I ever liked get some more appreciation from me. A blockbuster with ideas this risky needs to be performed more often, as the bravery in pulling it off can lead to experiences that can be both a fun time and offer some solid moments of surprise. Controversy, you say? Apes Together Strong. It may not be as action-packed as the title suggests, but having a final chapter that focuses more on character and emotion over spectacle feels like a breath of fresh air of sorts, and I wouldn't mind if more last installments perform this. The visuals and the effects are as strong as ever, as well as the acting and deep thematic strength, as this film, alongside its previous installments, will be seen as a high standard on how to make an effects-driven blockbuster series this consistently emotional, and to make it stand the test of time as a collection of amazing reboots. Now I'm even more excited for Matt Reeves' The Batman. I had a mixture of both hype and curiosity before it was released, especially since it was being led by a side character that wasn't well known to the mainstream, but at this point, that shouldn't even be a factor anymore. Even with the stunning and unique animation style, the story is much better than it deserves to be, as it includes fully fleshed out characters considering the amount, humor that is both funny and bizarre but never distracting, and a plot that turned this into one of my favorite Spider-Man stories ever. This is the type of superhero movie that can even be enjoyed by people who don't like superhero movies, which only makes the efforts of the creative minds even more impressive. I am anticipating the sequel as much as others, but I shall remain cautious. Even though I'm not a diehard fan or viewer of this franchise, after seeing this one, now I fully understand it, especially Fallout. In my opinion, it rivals Fury Road in the amount of commitment during the action scene, as it makes me truly appreciate the effort of filming practical and well-edited action sequences, as just about every action sequence here is at a top-tier level, especially the helicopter one at the end. The plot may be familiar, but along with what I just mentioned, the charismatic characters, solid side gags, addictive score, and dynamic visuals will make this another action film that will be hard to top. While I still believe that Toy Story 3 has the better ending, this still deserves to stand alongside the other Pixar masterpieces. It's pretty bizarre that people's appreciation for this went down, but not for me, as its pacing style may be different and not all the side characters get used, but I still stand by the strong messages and emotions shown here, as the new ideas offer new elements to the franchise that still have storytelling potential all these years later. With its new explorations on being a toy and much more, with the satisfying dash of great animation and humor, this turns it into the greatest film quadrilogy of all time, not that there's much competition. Wow. Just wow. What's been accomplished here leaves me at such a loss of words, as not only did they expertly follow up the landmark film being Infinity War, but also managed to finish it off at such a high point that I legitimately believe that it will go down as one of the greatest franchise endings in film history. With a massive runtime that mostly passes by smoothly, the focused characters receive fully realized arcs that will be remembered, action scenes that surpass expectations, stakes that feel higher than they've ever been before, and surprises that leave me fulfilled. If you've seen this achievement, then you already know what I'm talking about, as Endgame brings things so full circle that even if they never reach heights up to this level again, I will always be happy that they managed to do it anyway, especially with how many other competing series wishes that they could do the same. The MCU is indeed inevitable, baby. And that just about finishes it. As with these movies, alongside those I enjoy that didn't make it here, shows the love for cinema that has increased for me in the past 11 years, and I hope that it will continue. As a person who wants to make movies someday, this gives me hope that people are miraculously given the chance to do what they really want, while also having a bit of fun along the way. It's not as simple as many wished it could be, but making and watching these accomplishments is a rewarding experience compared to the others that were unfortunately not given the chance. I myself don't like to discriminate between massive blockbuster films and more introspective artistic ones, as I enjoy both equally, and I just wish fans of both would stop attacking each other. Luckily, I've had the chance to like and dislike any movie I want without feeling ashamed or having to judge something at a certain scale because what I wanted wasn't there. Ignoring all the hate aside, I've learned about and love more genres and types of movies now than I've ever have before, including understanding more on what the process is like. I would love more movies to exceed my expectations, as it only make me more excited to check out something I might have not been interested in before. No matter the quality and style, watching movies has and will always mean something to me, as just like Forrest Gump once said, and then to be repeated a million times, you never know what you're gonna get. Thank you for staying along, and I'll see you on the next one.